And with that, we're live. I thought I'd just go live a couple minutes early today because why not? Let's have a good session. Let's have a good, clean building session. It's been a couple weeks since I've sat down and done a build live stream, so there's a little bit of show and tell, on the front end. So I thought I'd just, start here. We'll do a little work. I'll kind of show you where I'm at with the Mando suit, and I'm excited. I think this is really fun. We made a lot of really good progress. You can see the helmet here is virtually completely done. I might do a little bit of washing in some of the corners to really bring out some of the details. But this thing, man, it really looks incredible. And it's super comfy because, foam. But the visibility is great and the shine looks great. And this is safe to touch now. I completely sealed it with pledged floor wax. Good evening, Melvin. Not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. What? Why? That doesn't seem right. Why is it poor status? But that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. I'm just a simple man with a simple computer. If it's bad, I'm sorry. But the helmet looks great. It's got some really good shine, and so do all the other pieces. I've been working really hard this week to try and get a lot of the other pieces done. We got one thigh plate, then of course the other, and these are simple shapes, which objectively means you have to try a lot harder with them, or they're going to look like garbage. So I'm really quite happy with how these have turned out. I really like this one. This one also looks quite good, but I won't lie. Something about this one, I really just love it. And they, of course, go just on the thighs. Ooh, up in the tiptoes, down here. And then, of course, the two shoulders also turned out quite nice. One with the crest fully on it. I'm thinking about doing just a little light dry brushing on that to try and pop it out a little bit more. And, of course, we are also looking at the chest piece, which is totally done, totally shiny. Looks great under all these studio lights, and actually just looks great under any light in general. Seriously, though, the sheen on these, I cannot... Thanks, Rava Stark Skywalker McQueen 95 88 77. Thank you very much. So we're just about done chroming things. The only things that I have left to chrome, I even chromed a little bit on the top of the shin, but the only things I have left to chrome are actually these two back here. I've got both gauntlets, and they actually have their first coat of sealant drying on them, one of them with a little bit of plasti dip to highlight some issues. And then I've also got all the way over here, as I move further and further away from the microphone, all the pieces that are sort of based blue. So I've got these panels all hang from the belt. So we've got, I want to say this, hang on. Yep, this is the right one, that's the left one, right here. And then we've got the back one and the front one that need to be heat formed just a little bit, but, that's where we're at. They're blue now, and that's really the important part. And then, of course, he's also got a standard, pretty stock Mando knee. It's got a knee with, the little guns and nonsense on it. So we got that as well, and we're going to do some griming up on that. And, of course, the right shin, we made entirely out of foam, so it's going to be sort of a fake foam leather thing. And this looks, I have to admit, this shape turned out even better than I thought it was going to. I added some fun details in the back. We're already at a nice base coat for this. The shape's real good. It's right where we want it to be. And in terms of just the patterns for these patterns have actually already been on my Patreon for some time. So if you're interested in them, check them out over there. I try to do a really good job supporting people when they have questions over on my Patreon. So if you're interested in that stuff, check it out over there. But for now, I thought we could just dive right in with some minor paintwork. So I have these hand plates here. I'm actually going to get a little close because I'm quite proud of the detail on these. You can actually see I've got the fine details of the lines, as well as the triangle shape. And it all looks really quite nice, and still raw foam on the underside just because I like to leave that flexibility. But you can see it, it does want to flex. It's a very comfortable piece. It's a very easy piece to put together, and I'm very excited to be painting it now. So why don't we... I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to take a little bit of water, add that to my paint dish here, because we're going to take some paint and just gingerly, he says, wash some into the grooves of this and slowly sort of warm up the hand pieces, because they are like a gray, but they're definitely supposed to have a little bit more depth than that, and they are sort of warm in tone. So we'll start with some beige, maybe work our way into maybe a little bit of orange and a little bit of brown. Just kind of washing this over the whole thing, just adding a little bit of tone to the overall piece. And it definitely collects in some areas, and we want that. We want a little bit of color to work its way into this. And of course, once we're sort of starting to get done with that, about halfway through this process, I am going to paint the triangle in the middle blue, because that is correct. There we go. Yeah, just really go to town on that. Maybe even add a little on the outside. Yeah, why not? Fill in any areas that weren't filled in before. Maybe there's just a little bit of detail left available for paint, and we're just going to add that. How do you attach the armor to the costume? So my recommendation for the armor pieces, generally speaking, because this is going on an undersuit, Melvin, would be to basically run to like Michael's. Let's say Michael's. Or if you felt like it, you know, there's a lot of places you can order them online. You can buy neodymium magnets for very cheap. And the nice thing about magnets, in a similar vein to like snaps, is that they can be attached at any angle. So you get two round magnets. Actually, I can kind of show this off. I think one of them, I finally got enough use out of my Vader helmet that one of these fell off. They're little round magnets, about yay big. And the idea is that they're quite strong, frankly. You can kind of hear the thunk as it hits my my desk down here. And these magnets can be bought in pairs. And the idea being that you would take one, maybe two, just stick them on the inside here. And that way, you can just ever so gingerly boop, set it on or take it off. And there's a couple of really fun advantages about magnets over, say, like pins. For instance, you don't want to put too much stress on these. Not to say that they're super delicate. Like I can kind of bonk it around. I'm not super worried about the finish. But let's say you got it caught on a door. If that were the case, I would not want this to stay attached to the costume and, you know, like rip and tear and bend it in weird ways. I would want it to sort of give and come off. And a magnet can do that. A magnet can essentially go, oh, you've reached the threshold to like pop this off, and it goes boop and it falls off. And is that unfortunate? Yeah, but it's also less unfortunate than this thing just getting ripped apart by you walking through a door accidentally. I also like magnets because, like I said, they can go on any angle. So if you've got a strong enough one and you just have one in the middle here, and maybe you're kind of moving throughout the day and this thing wants to kind of wooge that way or that way, it'll give like that. So magnets are my recommendation, especially on like the chest piece. Oh my god. Especially on like the chest piece. Because you could do like a couple at the top and then it'll still sort of flex down with you. Yeah. Those are my recommendations. I don't recommend straps for stuff like this because, first of all, there's, as near as I can tell, most of the stuff in the show is not strapped together. It's amorphously sci-fi on him, which is, a choice. As far as creative direction goes, it's a choice. I don't know how much I love it, but it's a choice. And, you don't necessarily want to go about strapping all these things together because it's going to start to look really cumbersome and clumsy. And, like I said, I know this is going on an undersuit, so magnets would kind of be my recommendation. They're super easy to use, is the thing, too. They're super user-friendly. Like, it's very hard to mess up using magnets. The only drawback that I can think of to magnets, honestly, is that they shouldn't go, like, near your electronics. And when I say near, I mean, like, on. Modern electronics are a little a little hardier than stuff of days and years past. So, you know, if you get like a magnet, like my phone's right there, and I've got a magnet right here, and like I can get pretty close over here, and I'm not really worried about that. I mean to say, like, if you accidentally put one of those magnets on your phone, it's gonna mess it up a little bit, and it will be your fault. There's just no two ways about that. But I think with just like the bare amount of precaution that you show your phone or your electronics all the time, there's really no danger. It's kind of like saying, oh yeah, I could have this water around my phone because I'm not going to just dump it on my phone. But magnets are definitely my choice for something like this. Oh wow, that already looks way better. The tone on that is just a little bit nicer. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. So we're starting in on the hand pieces here. I might add a little bit of brown to these, and then we can kind of use some of these tans and browns that we're using right here. And I think we could just go right ahead and maybe weather up the shin a little bit. This is going to kind of be an all hands sort of night. You know, we're doing a lot of different things. Like I said in the description, we're going to be working a little bit on the rifle tonight. I don't know how far we're going to get into that because it's like one of the last things we have to do here. So we're going to get a little further into that. But I mean, I can just sort of talk through the process on that. I'm actually working up a lot of my own stuff for this one. Like I said, most of these patterns are out on my Patreon already. So if you are interested, you know, they're out there. They're over there. But for the rifle, a lot of what I'm doing is actually basing it on how I want to ship it. And I am going for accuracy still. I'm not like fudging things around because, oh, it's a long prop and I don't want to ship it. It's more like I'm trying to honor the idea that this thing has to go in a box. And even if somebody's taking it to a convention, they're probably going to want to put it in a box. So it might as well be made to go in a box. So I'm going to make it in probably about 3 parts. It's going to be the stock, going to be the midsection, and the barrel. And the barrel's got sort of the teeth on the end, so it'll sort of lean out towards that. So whatever this goes together, and it's going to kind of go together like that. I have a nagging suspicion shipping this is going to be cheapest in like a golf club case. So like you can get boxes that are essentially rated just for golf clubs because people need to send their golf clubs places, I guess. I guess that's a thing people do. It's not a thing I do a whole lot, I'll be honest, but there you are. Ooh, yeah, that looks really nice. Here we go. So I'm sort of honoring the idea that this thing, not only does it have to get shipped at some point, but like getting it someplace is going to be hard if it can only be one piece. That's something I critique some of my past builds for. Like, for instance, Sauron's mace, which if you like this, you can go build your own. I have patterns out on the channel. It's a super fun build, don't get me wrong. But this thing's kind of big. And if I were to really try to do a cosplay of this, it'd be even bigger, probably like that much longer. And trying to get that anywhere is rough. It's really rough. Trying to store this is rough. And so when I can be, you know, charitable in the design with trying to make sure that there's space for things like that, I try to. Because I think it's important. It saves everybody involved, like, time and money, honestly. So, yeah. How did we get here? What was I talking about? I'm actually not 100% sure anymore. That's okay. Having a good time. But yeah, we're doing a lot of different things tonight. Wearing many hats. So while these are this is kind of drying with all the sort of washing, if you will, the light washing and the everything going on, we're going to sort of jump to some other stuff and do some metal weathering, all sorts of stuff. It's going to be a fun night. If you start at the top, you're certain to drop. You've got to watch your timing. Better begin by climbing up the ladder if you're going to last. You can't make it fast, man. Nobody starts a winner. Give me a slow beginner, easy does it, my friend. Conserve your fine endurance. What's the process with the rifle? So, basically, from what I can tell about the shape, I'm essentially going through, and I'm going to make a core out of PVC, so it'll be a pipe. I'm going to cap that. And then that's going to break into sections. And then, basically, it's like a box section, the stock, and the barrel, like I said. So my plan is to build up the back end and do the fine detail on the front, and then sort of build the box shape and add the greebles to it. I'd like to try and get even finer in detail than some of these. Now, mind you, I'm actually really proud of this, too. I've got a lot of fine detail in the gauntlets. You can kind of see this. This is arguably even the less detailed of the two. But there's a lot of fine detail going on here. A lot of stuff where I've gone through very, very much by hand sculpted a lot of these smaller bits. And I'm not begrudging that, by the way. I just really like good detail. But I feel like I could get even finer with some of my bits bin. So my plan is to sort of take all the stuff I love about foam, build up that box, and then go through it and add pieces to it until it looks as close as I can get to the thing. Kind of like what I did with my Star-Lord mask, where I've got all of these fine details and tubes, and there's a lot of foam detailing in here, but there's also stuff where I've just clipped coat hangers and wires and stuff, and you just kind of cram it all in until it looks the way you want it to. And that's kind of the end goal, is we want it to look the way we want it to. You can make a Phase 2 helmet from the movie Revenge of the Sith? Question mark, my best projects? That's totally fair. I would really like to do one. I mean, I've done sort of Captain Rex's Phase 2 helmet already. And I do have patterns for a full Phase 2 clone trooper for sale on my Etsy store. Ding! Yeah, I'd like to do a tutorial on it. I just haven't really had the time. I'm nearly done with this, and then I got another small something that I'm just trying to get up and out the door, and making career moves and Mahani moves, and that's been eating a lot of my time lately. I won't lie. All right, let's see here. I'm gonna need to do some dry brushing, so let's get some paper towel. So as much fun as washes and sort of wiping away paint is, we're actually going to do something slightly different here, because this is supposed to look like leather and, a little windswept. We got the everything about the Mando. So we're going to try and do some dry brushing instead. And that's where we remove most of the paint, frankly. Until we're just adding the barest amount. Where did I... Oh, there's my beige. Yeah, I'd really like to do more troopers. I would. But this is important stuff. I will say, I'll throw it out there, and it's not because I'm trying to, gouge or anything. But I do make a point of it that if somebody wants to pick a build for me to make and to do the build guide for and do the whole everything for, it's a $100 tier on my Patreon. And I've had people approach me about it before, and some of them have ultimately just said, no, you know what, maybe if I just pay for a template, and that's cool too. That's cool, but it's just a lot of time. A lot of time that I don't always have, Dome is circular and not square. Oh, you mean this one? Are you referring to the top of the Mando bucket right here? I don't know exactly, I just want to make sure. I'm going to start with some edge detailing and then go a little more hog wild once I've got the important stuff sort of built up. Because there's kind of a bend here that I want to highlight on both sides of the front. And then we'll kind of get the edges of all of this stuff. Get the good wear and tear look. Something did sort of inadvertently happen on this one, which is I had a little bit of humidity issue, which changed the finish just a little bit of some of the brown undercoat, which is actually great because I was going to be varying the finish anyways because, windswept leather. But it is just something that I am having to to be cognizant of now. Oh, there we go. That's already starting to look... You can see how, like, the definition starts to bump up, and you start to get good sense of, like, where all the edges are. There we go. Yes, the Mandalorian helmet, because the dome is just 2 pieces. Yes, the dome is just 2 pieces. So, what's going on here, and I think it's a little hard to tell, because, admittedly, I did a lot of filling and sealing, but it's 2 sides, and there's a seam sort of running across the top on either side. It's very lateral, so that it's got a very abrupt sort of rounding to it. But basically what I do to get that is there's a lot of preheat forming, and if you go back and watch some of our earlier live streams, you can actually see me putting together the dome. And so there's a lot of preforming with, like, my heat gun. So that first and foremost is a huge part of the success of that dome. But then you also have to go back in and you have to really sand those edges down. And then you've got to fill them like crazy. Because otherwise you're going to wind up with a really ghastly looking seam. And if you're not careful, all this work that you do, like in the front and in the front and in the back and on the ears here, goes to waste because you've got really, really, really aggressive looking seam lines on your dome. And that's really the success of a lot of this stuff, you know, and some of that's hiding it too. Because, you know, hypothetically there should be a seam in the back here, but I've hidden it with this strip, and that's really, really nice. Or like on the shoulder here, this looks like one continuous piece, but really I've hidden all the seams on the inside underneath details and whatnot. The same is true. Boom! See what I mean? Survives falls quite well. The same sort of true on this guy here. You know, although I did have to do some seams that are kind of out in the open, and, you know, I'm hiding them with paint and whatnot. But, you know, where you can, you gotta find ways to hide them so that you're not wasting a ton of time filling and sealing and painting. Because I will say, I probably did about 3 rounds of sealing on the helmet. And that's not just because, you know, I was more concerned with the helmet than anything else. It's because it's definitely the most iconic part of the look. And if that's not right, it doesn't matter if any of the rest of it's right. Because people are going to look at the helmet and go, oh, that's not right. You know, Melvin, you and I talked about this a little bit. Because you were really concerned about one particular detail that I did notice as well. Which is that there's a lot of people out there who build this based off like a Boba Fett. And the visor on the Boba Fett helmet goes straight down, it ends flat, it's very square. Whereas the Mando's helmet looks very svelte because it actually tapers very finely, and then there's these sort of outcroppings right there. And we talked about how, you know, it's the subtle things that make you, in the back of your head, even if you're not 100% sure why, you're like, that's not right. Something's wrong. It's not bad, and, you know, people aren't bad for doing that. That's never the takeaway here. It's just one of those things where you're like, oh, it's not quite right. Here we go, though. Now we're starting to get some real definition on some of this. We can kind of go to town. I'm probably going to get a bigger brush in a minute and start doing big, sweeping sort of details. Yeah, I'm trying to highlight some of the sculpting that I did up here. That sort of, it disappears a little bit when it's one tone. But the second you add just a little bit of shaping to the paint, it all pops back out. And that's the important thing. So, another question. What you make to get the metal color that sprite you use? Since with acrylic, with normal sprites, there is no metal from the series. I don't think I'm 100% sure what a sprite is. I'm assuming you're asking how I got the metal color here, right? I'll let you answer that before I try to answer your question, because I don't want to assume that I'm answering the right question here, because I'm really not certain. See here, yep. Really go to town on these upper edges. There we go. That looks really, really satisfying. Now I can tell that on camera this isn't quite obvious, but you can start to see the lining appearing, and the shape looks really good. Yes, okay. So this is also something I did maybe the last stream for this, or the stream before this. This is graphite powder. So it's black. Okay, well, actually, I'll start from the beginning. It's foam. And then following up the foam is a couple layers of watered down glue or Mod Podge. I'm kind of using a mix of both with the rest of this stuff. And then following that is gray Plastidip, followed by black gloss enamel automotive paint. Following up that, on some of these, is a clear gloss to try and get it even shinier. And then following up that is this stuff. It's graphite powder flake. I apply it with a foam pad, and you kind of buff it on. And then once you buff it on, you're gonna seal that because it's kind of a delicate finish with some Pledge floor gloss. And at that point, it becomes safe to. Oh no 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 no! Oh no! I just poured glue on my floor. Oh shucks. Completely derailing the live stream. I'm so sorry, folks. Give me 1 second. Oh, shoot. Baby, I poured glue on the floor. It's water-based, at least. Oh, no. Oh man, can't believe I did that. Oh, I'm gonna have to check up on that later. Oh, jeez. There we go. Alright, human moment passed. What was I talking about? Oh, then it's finally safe to touch, because Pledge floor gloss is really quite durable, and the shine's very similar. I will say it doesn't dull to me, but the metal look changes because now it's a little glossier than it was metallic shiny before. But I'm okay with that, especially given that it's very, very easy to handle now. Plus, it's sealed if I decide to do any washes of any kind. Now, speaking of weathering, I'm actually going to get a bigger brush real quick. Let's say this gnarly looking chip brush. We're going to do exactly what we've been doing. But now, I'm going to use this guy to try and do some larger areas and some scuffing. And this guy's got more directionality to him. But at the same time, I can cover a lot more area in a more meaningful sense. Get more detail in the texture, more the way that I want. And if at any point I feel like I have too much, I can always just grab my paper towel, knock it back down a little bit. Do a little bit in the mid area here. Trying to add a little bit of additional texture to the overall look. There we go. And I'm purposefully avoiding a couple areas because some of my seams, they're good, but they could be better. So I don't want to accidentally extra highlight them when I'm doing all this dry brushing, because that wouldn't be good. You know, a good prop maker knows when to be sparing, I think. There we go. Yeah, that's great. That looks fantastic. I really like the layering of the detail. Honestly, I'm very proud of how much detail is popping out essentially from a one-tone dry brush here. That looks really good. There we go. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit more detail here. I'm going to take this... Oops. Is this the brush I was using? I feel like I'm losing my mind, because this is definitely This is definitely not the brush I was just using. What? I'm losing it. What? Is this the brush I was using? It must be. It must be. Oh my god, sorry. I'm just going to add a little bit of this same detail to the inner part of each of these sort of fake buckles I did on the back. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So now I'm going to get a dark brown. We'll do a little bit of washing on here. We'll return to the hand plates, I think. And then I'll do a little bit of metal on that too. And some of the other ones as well. I've got a dark brown back here that I really like. Yo, what? Forgive me, everybody. I'm now... if you are interested in foam cosplay and you like talking with people about foam cosplay, if you like talking with me about foam cosplay, y'all should check out the Everything EVA cosplay group on Facebook. It's like 10,000 members strong. It's a super nice place. Great admins and moderators, and I'm one of them. But somebody just asked to join it that has a last name that suggests I'm related to them, which is very interesting indeed. Huh. Very strange. All right, let's add some dark brown here. Actually, I think we need to go really quite dark indeed. And to that end, where did I put the black paint? It's around here somewhere. I just need to find it. Oh, that's right. I was using it as a drying stand. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah, we're going to use some black to really darken this up because we need to get this super dark to add meaningful shade to this. Here we go. Again, if anybody has any questions about what I'm doing, I'm always quite happy to... Why is that so toned down? That's not right. Oh, it's because there was some beige in that pool. That's why. This is just turning out really gray right here. Okay. New plan of attack. I'm going to get another small area on this palette and add some water to that instead, because here we go. Just add a little bit of brown to it. There we go. Nobody tell my dentist I'm like holding this in my mouth. I have to get a crown coming up here, and they'll be very mad at me if they were to find out. Here we go. All right, so we'll just kind of groove it. Along this whole edge here. You can't leave it too long. You have a longer working time with things like oil paints than acrylics. For acrylics, you kind of have to get in and get out real fast. Here we go. So on the other side of this, essentially, we are adding some depth to the recesses by adding more dark color, whereas we just added a bunch of detail to the raised edges with a lighter color. Because that's how light works. But you're all very competent crafters. You know this. Let's do this. Here we go. Oh man, I love the parts of the build where I just get to go hog wild with paints. I don't know about you guys, but that's one of my favorite things to do, is just kind of go nuts until it's exactly the way I want it to look. I got lucky when I met you and fell in love. I never found a four-leaf clover to bring good luck to me. No rabbit's foot, no shooting star, no magic wishing tree, but I got lucky. Yes, I got lucky when I found you. When I found you. No rainbow round my shoulder, no horseshoe round my door, but I got you to hold me tight, and who could ask for more? Oh, I got lucky, yes, I got lucky when I found you. Oh, I always walk around with all of my fingers crossed for luck. Don't wanna lose you, 'cause you're the girl I'm dreaming of. Girl I'm dreaming of. So come on, tell me that you really love me. Go on and name the day, and then I'll know that all of my good luck is really here to stay. Oh, I got lucky. Yes, I got lucky when I found you. Alright. I'm going to pull out just a little bit of this Plat Effects Gunmetal. I cannot speak to the broader Plat Effects, like, lineup, but I can tell you that their Gunmetal Gray really rocks. It covers super well. It's a great color overall. It looks kind of like... I agree, Melvin. The devil is in the details, but it looks kind of like if this sort of chroming process was an acrylic, if that makes sense. It's not chrome, but it's got sort of the same vibe in terms of the color palette and the finish. And I think that's a very good thing, honestly. Especially considering that I'm, using it for the rest of this. There we go. Yeah, no, it's definitely got the same sort of shine. I don't like taping off, so I'm doing this in one go. 'Cause I'm a madman. wow, there we go. There we go, got the buckles in the back started there. That looks great. Okay, let's start adding some blue to this because I'm definitely going to add some dry brushing over that blue. For that, we go for another brush. It's a new brush. Let's see here. I think I just need to make a slightly deeper blue, so let's try blue. Also, just like the teensiest bit. I mean that, just like the teensiest bit of black. So I just wanna change the tone a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, there we go. It's a lot deeper now. It's also still got that vibrance. There we go. Actually, let me make sure it's supposed to be deep and vibrant, because now I'm not so sure. Mando hand plate. Now I'm not 100% sure, because I was just looking at a reference, and now I'm... Oh no, it's supposed to be very bright. Oh wait, no, that's right. I was gonna do darker blue, and then I was gonna dry brush over it a lighter blue, because that winds up looking really vibrant. So that's how we're gonna do this. Go through. Oh yeah, love that. I think that looks really cool. This is gonna be great. There's just so much color. It's so weird because like the shiny Beskar is cool, don't get me wrong. But also all the parts where there's lots and lots of color and you're kind of building a detailed sort of feel to the overall piece, that rocks. That's fun. As a prop maker, I enjoy that a ton. Don't get me wrong. Again, chroming this was a unique and fun challenge that I am now done with. So done with. Go. Got that about as evenly as it can. There we go. Alright, let's check up on that. Sweet. And while we've been painting that, this has had just enough time to dry to add a second coat. Because it deserves it. Because we deserve to treat ourselves to a second coat. Oh man, that looks great. I really do like, you know, if you were going for a super budget Mando build and you wanted to try and get a good sheen, but you didn't have a ton of money, you didn't want to buy spray paints, or like you wanted to do it all inside for some reason, this Splat Effects Gunmetal would be a pretty good route to go, honestly. The more I think about it. You know, I was going to start the rifle tonight, you know, because I've got like the stuff here. But the more I'm doing this, the more I kind of want to just keep going, because there's like a little bit of tinge to all this stuff, you know, like in some of the corners, especially on the thigh plates and maybe a little in the shoulders, is like a little bit of grime, and maybe that's what we got right now. Unless, I mean, Melvin, if you want to weigh in, I mean, it is ultimately, if you want these to look really pristine, I won't touch them. But you know, I thought I'd ask. Let's see here. I am actually going to set all this paint aside for a minute. In the interest of trying to get more things done, even though we just lost a ton of the glue. Dang. I'm going to do another coat of glue sealant on this, which will probably be the last coat. Because then we get to start actually adding all like the paint and the plasti dip and whatnot. You don't want to go too hog wild when you're sealing foam. I'm objectively sealing these. Keep going. All right, I'm objectively sealing these a lot more intensely than I would normally. I'd probably only do one coat, even more watered down. Just because, you know, it's really just about getting the pores to relax in a way where you're like, oh, I can paint over these now. But for this, I'm trying to get like a very smooth paintable surface. And fortunately, these things don't have to flex as much as some of the work that I do, but they will definitely be a bit more structured, if you will, because we're adding a lot more sealant than we would normally in order to get those shines. One thing I will notice is that, excuse me, I will point out is that this thing has a tip. This cone here on the Whistling Birds is actually entirely sculpted by hand out of foam clay. The cool thing about that is that I was able to get a lot of the really fun details in there without, you know, sacrificing the ability to, you know, still paint over it and seal it in the exact same way as everything else. It's still going to look very homogeneous because of the way I did this. But one thing that does kind of suck about foam clay is because it's an air-dry clay, it is slightly activated by water, which means that while you're sealing it, it'll kind of try to, shall we say, reactivate. And you usually end up getting a little bit of like what you're seeing right here, which is just the gray of the clay sort of working its way around. Yeah, I'm hoping to do more work on the rifle over the back end of this week and into next week. So hopefully, like, next week it'll be more like finishing up the rifle than starting the rifle. Because we are, like I said, we are actually, like, we're on the home stretch here. This has been a lot of fun. And I'm really quite glad that it has ended up spanning the time that it has. Not just because, you know, it's nice to have something to do and people to talk to, but also because this has been a really awesome exercise in, like, rumination on detail. Because there's definitely, like, some detail on these that maybe I was never going to be able to capture in foam. And that's, you know, I'm a big enough man to say that. But I have to say, I feel like I've captured a lot of it in a meaningful way that just looks nice. It looks right, if I'm being honest. And I love that. I love that I can look at something like this that was kind of a stretch for me in some levels and say, yeah, I did it, and it looks really correct. It's a replica prop. Here we go. All right, Melvin, I see you. Keep going. We're going to keep going. See how far on all this we can get before we end tonight. My little brother might be making an appearance. He's getting off work, and he was going to come by. One thing that I do that not everybody does, I'm aware of this, is I use a lot of foam brushes to apply things because I really like to minimize brush strokes, and I find that foam brushes help me do that, and they're very cheap. But I will say one thing that foam brushes do that traditional brushes don't Hey there, Melina. Good to see you. Glad to have you with us. One thing, what I was just saying is, one thing about foam brushes that other brushes don't tend to do is they tend to bubble up. So if you're pressing really hard, if you're not careful, you'll end up introducing bubbles, especially into thicker mediums like watered down glues. So that is one thing I do have to be careful. I kind of have to fight a lot. The trade-off is I tend not to get brush strokes when I'm doing stuff like this. I tend to get very clean, even application, and that's really important when you're trying to make super smooth stuff. As always, if anybody has any questions or wants clarification about what I'm describing, please let me know. And if you want to do the things I do using the things that I do have like Amazon affiliate links down below in the descriptions. You know, check it out. It's not that much money for me, so it's like it's not really that important. It's really just the idea that like if you want these things, if you like the way I do it and the results I get, you can use the things that I use. There we go. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we got the one. I will just stand that on it. And here's the other one, and unfortunately it's not pristine looking like the other one because I added some plastic dip to try and highlight something that I thought was an error, but it was not an error. It just kind of looked funny because of the lighting, and making it a darker gray showed me the light, showed me that I was doing all right. That you do the glue wash, then plastic dip. Why do you do both? I've only seen people use one or the other. Great question. So, the short answer is, when I first started doing this, I did way too much of both, which is not something you need to do. You don't need to do like 5 layers of glue and 4 layers of plastic dip. That's really counterintuitive to what you're trying to do, which is to use as little material ultimately as possible to try and get the smoothest finish that's still flexible. Secondly, you can just use glue or just use plastic dip. I find that if you just use plastic dip, you're going to end up with a finish that will ultimately last longer than if you just use glue. But glue is very cheap, and I know that plastic dip is very not. I've made my peace with this knowledge. I generally use both, and here's why. Because a single watered down layer of glue or Mod Podge, generally speaking, isn't enough to paint over. Because you're still going to get a lot of that foam texture if you try to go straight from there to paint. But it won't impede the flexibility very much, but what it will do is it'll make the surface just a little bit smoother and a little bit more impermeable, so that when you go to plastic dip, you end up using a lot less plastic dip, and I find it goes on smoother. And so ultimately what you wind up with is a better finish for very little money, using less material that's still very flexible. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I do know it eats a lot of time. You're absolutely correct there. Is it Tanura or Thenura? I'm trying to get it all right. I really am. I swear. There we go. But that's a great question. Great question, Melina. I do think that it's worth doing both ultimately. And sometimes, I won't lie, I've had builds where I will attempt to essentially fill using Mod Podge. I'll be like, this gap was really big, so I just kind of pour glue into it until I'm like, that's probably fine. Usually I try to avoid that, as you might imagine. Now here's one thing that I think is really important when you're doing glue stuff, which is to have something really fine on hand, sometimes a sculptor's tool or an X-Acto knife, because I add a lot of fine detail to my builds, and occasionally, if you're not careful, you'll wind up filling in that detail, and you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you don't accidentally pour a bunch of glue in. And cover up all those really nice details. I'm not cutting the build here, I'm just kind of moving the glue out of those very nice groove lines I cut for myself. There we go. The armor is looking great. If you had taken a tutorial... Oh, I'm glad you like the armor. I didn't feel the need to do a tutorial on the armor because like I have a lot of tutorials on doing Pepakura. I have a lot of tutorials on doing a lot of other parts, and I was feeling very bogged down by doing this and trying to do tutorials for all of this stuff. So I have a tutorial hopefully coming for the helmet, but I don't feel like doing a tutorial for this entire armor, especially since I'm not, no offense, like I'm not going to be the one to like show it off in all of its glory. You know, it's going to a client, so I won't be able to, I can only like lay it out on the floor. I don't have a mannequin. I am also not the size of this person, so it's going to be different on me. So I wouldn't be able to give you like a really strong, look, all the armor, like Hero Workshop, just did a really good build that's, you know, great for anybody who really just wants to throw stuff at the wall and, you know, make Mando's armor. And I'm not bashing that, by the way. I'm just saying that like it looks more like the Fortnite one, and that's cool. I love Fortnite. But you know, I was going for a level of detail here that would take so long to explain. Other than just having the templates, you know, for my patrons and checking that out if you want. Yeah, it wasn't going to be feasible for me to do all of this and that. Here we go. Hey, that buckle's looking really, really nice. Well, both of them, really. I'm going to call that shin done, I think. What are we going to do, Jaden? What do you want? I know what I want. I'm going to get some new paper towel, and before we finish up here, this armor, this isn't a request, this is a commission. Somebody's paying me to make this for them. And we're very grateful. But yeah, this is a full-on commission. Ooh, shoot. That's okay, I got a little paint on the table. And a little bit of blue. Go. So yeah, this was something that I was paid to build. And admittedly, it was something I'd wanted to build, but also like I'm trying to push stuff out all the time, you know. 2 sets of Mando's armor. I'll be cosplaying as Din and a Batman Mando build. That sounds super cool. That sounds really cool. God, I love the cosplay community. That's so creative. Grogu will be Robin. Of course he will. Of course he will. How could he not be? Oh my god, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I love that. I bet you it looks really cool, too. Let's be honest, though. What character doesn't look cool mashed with Batman? You know? Like, you're just increasing how cool any particular character looks by adding Batman elements. Honestly. I mean, that's how Arrow works. At me. Here we go. Sweet. That blue looks really vibrant, and we're going to add some more layering to that in a moment. I am going to take this brush. I'm going to clean it real quick. Sweet. Let's go ahead and we'll start on the thigh pieces here. I'm going to take some of that black paint we watered way down, and I'm just going to kind of add it to some of the grooves. Try to add some even more depth to some of this. Maybe that changes the finish slightly around the edges. And I think that that will ultimately serve us very well. It's got kind of a greasy look to it, which is great. That's so Star Wars. It's the idea of like your armor has like a grease to it, and that's why it's, you know, it's like oiled up like a machine, like you are. It's great. And this is super watered down because I don't want to add a ton of I don't want it to add like any color to this, really. And I don't actually want it to be super like black right there. I just want it to have that suggestion of like a wetness to where oil would be building up. So we're gonna end up wiping off most of this. Unfortunately, because of the way we've sealed it, you know, not a lot of it's gonna stay. Yeah, there we go. That's what we want. Now, just take a paper towel, and we're just going to kind of wipe most of this away. And we can afford to be pretty gruff with this, because, you know, it's foam. I'm just getting rid of most of this paint. Here we go. Oh, but that already looks so much nicer because it's just got a little bit more depth, especially in like the corners of all these areas. There's so many panel lines on this too, and that really deepens all of those. I'm just going to kind of buff the main areas of all of these to make sure I didn't leave any big pockets of paint. There we go. Yeah, I love that. That looks really, really sharp. There we go. You know, it doesn't detract anything. That's the other thing, is that if worse comes to worse, I just wipe this down. What colors did you use on the hand plates? I'm winging it on the colors. I'm trying to color match as best that I can, so based on what I've got. So this is actually a hyper gray, like ultra matte gray base. And then I've used various tones of like brown and beige to warm it up a little bit and add some detail to that. I'm probably going to wipe even more of that away, slash build up some other areas. And then for this, I've actually used a dark blue. This is just primary blue. And then I'm going to do some dry brushing of a lighter blue to kind of give it a very dry look to it, while still getting to that final tone that we really want. Let's see here. Let's go. There's the other thigh plate. Let's add a little bit more black to this one real quick. Again, going just around the edges, letting it pool in some areas. That's appropriate. Really taking pretty much like as much water with it as we can, because we want to have this essentially erase itself when we're done. We're going to try and leave almost nothing on this, except in the corners to give it that built-up look. Go. And it does. It leaves just a little bit behind. But the little bit that it leaves behind really adds some detail and a little bit of surface imperfection that I like. Because when it's perfectly smooth, not just perfectly shiny, but perfectly smooth, it looks like it's not actually been worn and will like never be worn, like it's for display. And that's not correct. We're actually going for like a cosplay. So it's got a little bit of wear to it. It's still just very, very remarkable. That's a good thing. One thing that I really want to make sure that we get right, though, some of these are going to be more worn than others, but this, I think, needs to be very worn, because this is the thing that goes on the shin, and as I've already shown you, the shin is very, very, very worn down. So we're going to have to make sure that the whole thing is very worn down, because this is attached to it. Go. Have you seen the SKS Props channel? Yes, I have seen the SKS Props channel. To that end, this is actually built out of HD foam. This is his foam. There we go, though. That'll rest up here. Just like that. I'm probably just going to hot glue that into place, because I needed to do this totally separately so that I could do the chroming on it. But that looks really, really sharp. Wow! That turned out, like, even better than I could have hoped. Loving that. That is very sharp. No, Stephen K. Smith and I are actually friends. Well, not friends. We're like social media friends. Not that I wouldn't like to get to know him better. He seems like a really nice guy. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the prop community are like big, lovable teddy bear people, and that's honestly so wholesome. So wholesome, especially the guys. I will say, like, there's problems with the prop community. It's an older base, so, there's, like, stuff that you gotta deal with, but I mean, generally good-hearted people, and that's a really nice thing. Hard to find hobbies with, generally good-hearted people. Now, on this here, this is the knee piece. I think we're gonna wrap up here pretty soon. But I think I'd like to do just a little bit of detail on the knee piece here. We're going to take... Oh, actually, that's right. I have... Sorry about that. I poured some gunmetal a little earlier, so we're going to take some of that gunmetal and add it to areas on the knee. We're really going to wear it down, so I'm actually going to sort of dry brush this gunmetal onto it. Try and just add a little bit of detail to it. I'll probably wind up taking some, like... Yeah, this isn't going to be enough. It'll be a good start. What we're actually going to have to do is I'm going to have to take some like wax-based silver finishes and really go to town on it, because I want this thing to look very beaten up, because it's the knee. It should be objectively way more beaten up, and it's not like it's Beskar. How many live streams do you do a week? I try to do 2. In recent weeks, it's been more like one slash a video here or there, and that's just been because life is a thing, and life is crazy. But I try to do 2. I try to do live streams Tuesday, Thursdays. Do the builds live streams Thursdays. Pepakura Tuesdays, where we make templates and, talk shop about using Pepakura for builds. Because most of this, not all of it, but most of this was built using Pepakura methods and foam unfolding practices. And so that is a big part of the channel. It's a big part of the way I craft. It's a big part of the way I try to teach others how to craft. So I try to do 2. How long have I been working as a cosplayer? Working as a cosplayer? Probably about a year. The pandemic kind of gave me the start. How long have I been doing this, though? I've been doing this for the better part of, like, 8... No, it's been, like, 8 years. So it's been the better part of a decade. I started doing this in high school. Well, actually, before high school. I thought it was a lot of fun. I would do it for, like, spirit days and stuff. And then I went to college, and I wound up getting a degree in theater, with an emphasis in, like, running all sorts of things, including costume shop and costume work and craft artisan work, which just kind of brought me back here, ultimately. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun doing this stuff. And when I can do it for money, all the better. Oh, that looks really nice. That's subtle. We're going to make it less subtle, but it's subtle right now, and I like that. And I like that the wear seems to come from the bottom, implying that he, like, sort of, like he rests his knee on it a lot. No, but I've been selling stuff for a long time, but recently I've been a lot more active, obviously, taking commissions. I work a part-time job, but I love doing this. I really do. I do this, and actually, I also do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. There's a lot of tabletop role-playing. I'm actually going to do a Star Wars one-shot soon here. Let's see. Okay. I don't want to ruin this brush, but I think... Yep, I've got one right here. So wax-based finishes have a habit of ruining brushes. You know, they kind of end up being for one thing. So I'm going to take this brush that I've been using for rub and buff for a long time now. And I'm going to just get a little bit of rub and buff on there. And it's a much more aggressive silver, but the shine's a lot nicer. So we're going to just kind of go over the places we already went over it, but heavier. And you can already kind of see where it's popping out. Rub and buff is great for exactly what it sounds like, which is sort of just rubbing the silver finish onto your prop until it looks silver. There we go. Trying to honor what I did before, which is all that wear along the bottom. Ugh. I don't know, how long has everybody else been working on cosplay? How long have you been getting into this? You know, what's everybody else's journey? I've been reflecting on that a lot lately because we just hit 1,000 subscribers, which is very exciting. But it also makes you think like, wow, I've been doing this long enough. I've got 1,000 subscribers. I've got like, I do commissions and whatnot. It's interesting. It's weird because, you know, you don't think about it until suddenly it's here. Like I've got my first, like one of my first builds in the shop right now. Let's see if I can get to it. There's this big chest piece. It was just clunky. It's not from anything. Just a big thing. Yeah, no, I'm really glad that you just in this. I'm really glad you're excited about the Pepakura. It's a really, really versatile program that uses. It's very open to a lot of people, and that's not something you find a lot. You know. And I really like showing that there's ways for a lot of people who maybe didn't think that 3D stuff would be a component of their work to use it. We're going to just add a subtle shading effect to that. That looks great. I love it. Got the shin there. And then as long as I got this out, I did want to do one thing with this to the chromed armor. Now, I don't want to do this for most of it, but on the sigil, I wanted to take just a little bit of this wax finish and gingerly highlight the edges of it so it pops out a little bit more. Just like that. I won't lie, I did think about doing the entire suit in rub and buff silver because you can get a really good shine on rub and buff silver. You really can. But I think this was ultimately the good way to go, frankly. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that was a good decision. It does have a little bit of a worn look, but you can definitely see the edges of it a little bit sharper now. Yeah. And it's so shiny already, it's kind of hard to tell that it's like a different silver. It just kind of looks like more shiny. Oh, man. I don't know. Add a little bit to this. Screw it. Looks really good. Oh, you know what? That might end up being the thing that makes this look all the better. It's just a little bit of dry brushing in the slightly different silver. I actually wound up using a lot of this on a recent build There's really not a lot of stream or video on it, but I did another commission, was a smaller commission, admittedly, recently for a custom Cyberpunk Doctor Doom Infinity Gauntlet. And it looked really cool, but I ended up using a lot of the same techniques, a lot of chroming, but with the, ooh, that'd be my little brother. I might have to go a little bit of the dry brushing to try and bring out the detail a little bit more. And that looks, God, that looks really, really cool. All right, with that, I think we are going to wrap up for the night. I want to thank everybody who showed up. This has been a ton of fun, this live stream, and I'm really glad I finally got to show off a lot of this, because I've been kind of putting my nose to the grindstone to make sure that this is getting done. And it's fun to loop everybody in on that. I want to give a big shout out to my patrons. My patrons really help me, like, keep going. You know, they pay for some small expenses here and there. I get to get input from them on things that they'd like to see. Extra templates go over there. They get a lot of this stuff in advance, but I like to thank them by name because they're all super nice people and I like interacting with them. So Laura, Ruben, Matt G, Jennifer Zayer, Pan Dulce, K-Snake, and Austin of AJ Plays Piano. Thank you all so much for being patrons. It's just $3 a month if you want to get your name in these videos and access to all that stuff. So consider it. Consider checking us out. Otherwise, for now, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Jaden. This has been an absolute delight. Please, take care.